and all of the links are going to be available on our website later next week. So if there's something that you see that you like, a resource or a handout, remember that that will be available very, very soon. In terms of who is joining me tonight, I'm going to go ahead and start with myself. My name is Kristen Jones-Manning. I am one of our Futurology College and Career Counselors. I also have another one of our counselors with us tonight. Her name is V. She is going to be helping me man the Q&A. So if you guys have questions, more than likely she'll be able to direct you to the right place or direct you to the fact that we might be answering that live. In terms of what the expectations are for tonight, this is really just a presentation to walk you guys through kind of what to expect for senior year and how to be super, super successful. I am actually going to get very started right now. So if there are any questions that you guys want to start asking, you are definitely welcome to ask them soon, or you can wait until the end of the presentation when we'll have a little bit more time to go in depth. We did not have a lot of student-specific questions that came through on the pre-survey that you guys were able to access. So just be aware that if there is a question that is really specific to your student, we might need to wait until the end to follow up with you or to get some more information to answer that in the most complete way possible. For now, we are going to go over our agenda. So if you've never worked with us before, B and myself are both Futurology counselors. What this means is that we are a part of the free college and career counseling program that is a part of CUSD. We help families make informed choices with personalized guidance. We have one-on-one counseling appointments, a variety of different group events, including webinars and presentations like this. Most of them tend to be in the evening or afternoon for students. And all of those can be found on our website, which you guys know because you registered and you're here, which is so great. Our agenda for tonight is lengthy. So I am hoping again that in an hour we can really get through a lot of this information for you all. And if there's something student specific, feel free to leave it in the end or to use the Q&A button to ask some of those questions. We're going to start by reviewing college and future planning requirements in general. We call those post-secondary options or post-secondary plans. We're also going to talk about understanding the guidelines to building a really comprehensive college list, a brief testing policy overview. We're going to talk about application timelines, quick financial aid information, and then at the very end, we're going to get a little bit more student specific to talk about letters of recommendation and essays or personal insight questions, personal writing prompts that are typically associated with your applications. So the first thing I want to bring to everybody's attention is just that you need to still understand your A through G requirements as they relate to graduation and to your college applications. There have been some changes with COVID and with our grading policies in the past 6 months. And so instead of having 220 credits needed to graduate, all of you actually only need 200. With that being said, you still need to understand exactly what those requirements are, what types of courses that you should have taken or that you need to be enrolled in currently, and make sure that you're checking in with your advisor to do that. So some helpful tips that we have for seniors in regards to understanding your A through G requirements is that you need to maximize your options by maintaining them. A through G is a set of courses that most of you should be familiar with, Most of you should be familiar with. It includes any of your college prep courses where you earned a grade of a C or better. For our seniors who had a credit, no credit option last semester, having a credit on your transcript is okay. It should be the equivalent of a C, and that's what it will be viewed as typically by the college unless you opted to have letter grades, which are also just fine. This also includes your visual and performing art course, which sometimes can be overlooked by students as they're planning their course pathway. Definitely check in with your academic advisor. They probably notified you already if that was a class that you needed to add into your senior schedule. And then also we really recommend that you continue in your math pathway. By the time seniors get to 12th grade, a lot of times they tend to opt out of math or want to have another option besides math. We really encourage you guys against that to stay in your math pathway because it does affect your placement later for your freshman year of college. And it also affects your knowledge base and memory as you go into your college experience. I know taking a year off of math for me would be really, really hard to jump back in, especially if it was something I didn't really like. So definitely continue in your math pathway if possible. You're also eligible to take electives at Saddleback or at Irvine Valley College, which are our local community college options. Both of these are a great option if you're not really sure what you'd like to do or if you want to explore something that your high school doesn't offer. So what are post-secondary options? So post-secondary options are kind of the beginning of your transition into adulthood. The next few slides are definitely going to have information for students and for parents. And as we continue, we'll kind of even off either way in terms of who the slide is really designated for and what it's going to be the most useful for. So one of the things that I want to make parents aware of is that in terms of post-secondary options, there is an established law called FERPA, which is the Family Education Rights and Protections Act. This requires that students' information is protected from anyone as soon as they enter higher education, and it begins in the application process. So what we recommend is that you guys start to have these conversations about how students can take more responsibility for their goals and the things that they want. This becomes an issue sometimes when we have parents who want to call on their students' behalf to ask questions about their application, to ask questions about their participation in a program, to get a report about their grades. At the high school level, parents have free reign and free access to all of that information, and that transition happens beginning with the application process into higher education. Start having those conversations now. I think for the most part, students are willing and eligible to share their information with their parents, but it won't be something that's automatically given or processed to you, which is definitely a lot different than the K-12 level. For students, please start checking your email regularly. This is considered a primary contact for students at this point. If you are getting emails from colleges, emails about setting up your student portals, most of the time you will find out your admissions decisions through that versus a snail mail letter or something of that nature. So please make sure that you're checking your email regularly and understanding kind of what happens with some of those communications as you move forward. I hate that I have to talk about social media, but it is a necessary conversation. Every year we hear about students who were accepted to their dream school or a school that they were really excited to attend. And unfortunately, a lot of their social media content violates their code of conduct. Please just be responsible. Your presence online can definitely be considered as a part of your admissions evaluation. Be responsible. Keeping things like hate speech off of your personal feed is probably just a proactive step that we all could take. And what we really want is for students to have all of the opportunities that they want and that they've earned. Don't miss out on opportunities just because you are not necessarily mature yet or you're working towards that. These are just some basic guidelines for students to follow as they enter senior year and definitely as they continue throughout senior year. So students have a lot of different post-secondary options to choose from. College is definitely the most popular option, but it is definitely not the only option that we are going to discuss tonight. Over the past 3 graduating classes within CAPO, about 77% of our seniors go on to higher education or to college. 41% go directly to a 4-year university, and about the other half of that 70% go to a community college and then either transfer or pick a different route afterwards. There is a nice chunk that also attend certificate vocational trade programs. They begin working or they end up enlisting in a military option, which is totally up to the student's prerogative. Research is really key in understanding which options might be the best fit for you. This is a really critical proactive part of planning for senior year. A lot of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight are proactive, meaning you can do them early. You can start doing them right now. There are going to be lots of links in this presentation. Anything that looks like this that is linked, you all will be able to download as a handout or another helpful resource later. Do not feel like you have to use every single thing that is in this presentation. As we move along, it is definitely link heavy on purpose to give everyone a variety of resources. But if you have questions about the differences between a major and a minor, the differences in the types of college degrees, understanding what higher education options mean in California. So how are the UCs different than the Cal States? There are lots of ways that you can explore those through the links in this presentation. And I see a hand from B. Yes.
Hi,
B.
Kristen.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that there aren't currently any questions and answers. I don't see anything on my end. Do you see anything on your end?
I don't. So
Okay.
either all of you are just wonderful attendees or you don't have any questions yet, which either way I'll take.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, talking about guidelines for building your college list. Understanding fit is a really important piece about understanding college admissions in general. If any of you have ever had a futurology appointment one-on-one, we talk about college fit quite a bit. Admissions is a matching exercise. So not every student is going to be a good fit for every school. And this is true regardless of your admissions chances, but it definitely is most impactful at those more selective institutions. And we'll talk about what selective means in just a second. At the more selective or more competitive colleges, most students are going to have supplemental information that they submit about why that college is going to be a good fit or a good match for them. So really evaluating what you want out of your college experience, what you want your expectations to be, is a great starting point to match you with a great school or to evaluate if a school is going to be a good fit for you. I think that this handout is also on our website, but it talks a lot about how much anxiety and stress this process can be for students. And what we want to do is dispel a lot of those rumors or word of mouth pieces of information that come in and talk about how you guys can present yourselves well and kind of what a college list looks like and how to best balance those options together. So understanding fit, here are some starting questions and again, some additional handouts and resources that you all are more than welcome to use. Does the college have your major that you're interested in? Does it align with what you value out of your college experience? Have I even thought about what I want my college experience to look like? Often when we meet with students, they say, well, I would just want to go to a four-year school, or I just want to go away from Southern California, which are great starting points too. These resources and handouts that are linked are also going to include kind of a deeper level of questioning to start looking at that includes your learning environment, how big the institution is, do you want to learn from graduate students? There are just more questions that you can begin to ask yourself to really frame exactly what your college experience might look like versus at one institution versus another. Okay, understanding a balanced college list. We use the word balanced quite a bit when we talk about building a college list. This is actually a quick little video that I am not going to play now, but if you are wondering what balance means in your college list or how to talk about reach, target, and safety in terms of your options, this is a great 2 or 3 minute video that you can watch at another time. I'm actually going to go straight into what reach, target, and safety mean and how we can use that to help students build a great list and also improve or increase their admissions chances. So understanding selectivity in admissions, like we said, it is definitely a matching game. We use numerical quantifiers to help students determine and categorize their chances of acceptance. So a reach school is typically a school that accepts less than 30 to 35% of applicants. Reach schools are highly selective to selective. A target school accepts between 35 to 65, 70% of applicants, and target schools should comprise the bulk of your college list. A safety school is a much wider range of acceptance. They accept over 80 applicants or more. Safety schools are typically the backup option for students, but they are super important to include on your list overall. There is some really good news is that most colleges accept over 2/3 of their applicants. There is a myth that admission standards are just completely impossible. It's so hard to get into school. No one is getting in anywhere. These are really not truths that exist everywhere on the college landscape. They do exist at some of the 40 highly selective institutions that accept a very, very small amount of students. The takeaways that we hope you guys understand from talking about your college list is just that you should have balance within those reach, target, and safety categories. Great college experiences happen everywhere. And so understanding where you fall within those ranges and at the schools that you're interested in is a really important part of the proactive process before applications open. So some of the questions that I see here, is it okay if we consider reach schools your target schools? Your reach schools will not be your target schools. Your reach schools will be highly selective, more selective than what your target schools will be. If your reach school is a school that you are really excited to go to, that's totally fine. You should have reach, target, and safety schools on your list, but you should also have a variety. So if you have reach, target, and safety options, there should be multiple in each category across your list. You shouldn't have a reach heavy list or a safety heavy list, depending on what your needs are. We say that the bulk of schools should be within this target range because it maximizes the chances that students have. If your list is truly balanced with some reach, some target, and some safety schools, all you're doing is maximizing your chances across the board at the institutions that you're applying to. A student, for example, who was applying to a reach heavy list of schools would just have a much smaller range of acceptance to expect. And that's something that we want to avoid when possible. So in terms of searching for or building your college list, if this is a brand new process to you, if you guys are starting this process from scratch for senior year, the next two slides are kind of a start to finish. How do I start? Where do I start? What does that look like? 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of guide. I'm not going to go through every single step because you guys can use this slide on your own. This is also a step-by-step process that we use in our College List Jumpstart workshop. So if you've attended that before, you might have seen some of these tools. One of the biggest takeaways from building your list that I want students to know is that you should use a variety of websites and a variety of resources to build your list. Cold Googling really is not going to be super helpful for you at this point because we want you guys to understand admission statistics in a way that helps you categorize your list into reach, target, and safety. College Express and College Raptor are two great websites that have some differences in the way that they search, but also give you some up-to-date admission statistics that you can use to see kind of where those schools would fall on your list. And so if you have any questions about how to start this process, feel free to go through these slides on your own after they're posted and use these resources. You can also make a one-on-one appointment with any of our counselors with our team, and we can walk you guys through a lot of what this will look like right now. The other thing that a lot of seniors are talking about or asking questions about in terms of their college list is, well, I can't go visit schools, so how do I find out about them or how do I learn more about them? There are a lot of really great virtual search tools. I know that this is not an ideal situation. Obviously, in an ideal world, you'd be able to go visit campuses and go on tours and see students there. We are in definitely a very strange time, but there are tools out there to use to give you a sense of what is this campus like? What are the types of students who attend? And is this going to be a good fit for me? So please feel free to use any of these resources as a part of your planning. If this is new information for you, if you've never heard of reach, target, and safety before, or if you want to explore campuses that are on your list a little bit more in depth. Okay, now we are at kind of the hot ticket item tonight, which is the testing policy overview. As you all know, I'm actually going to go back, that there are definitely some schools that are going test optional. We're going to talk about the differences in test optional, test flexible, and text blind in the next slide. But all of the systems are linked here along with some additional resources from FairTest, which gives a great list where you can search by state. You can download it by PDF and search for your individual school to see kind of what their new policies will be. In general, there are lots of schools and there is a lot more flexibility this application cycle for SAT and ACT testing than there have been in the past. With that being said, let's talk about the differences in what those things mean and how that relates most importantly to our California schools, so I can give you a better idea of what exactly I'm talking about. So there are three options typically for test optional programs or for admission. Test optional is very common due to COVID. Those policies are more of a gray area and they differ typically from school to school. They tend to rely on the student to choose if they want to submit a test score or not. Test optional typically means that a school will see a test score that's submitted and then they will choose if they want to include that as a part of the evaluation for the applicant. They still could be required for out-of-state, international students, particular programs. If you're applying for merit aid or certain scholarships, that could be an option too within test optional. This is a very common policy due to COVID, and it should not be a deterrent for students if they have a test score. The other option that is, again, kind of a gray area is what we call test flexible. That allows the applicants to submit various test scores. So maybe they're not saying you have to submit SAT or ACT scores, but they'll take an AP test, they'll take an IB test, they'll take an SAT2 subject test, but they won't exactly use those scores or determine those scores as a part of admission unless it's going to help the applicant. Test blind is the least common, but it is quickly emerging, obviously, as the most popular option for students. Test blind policies state that the SAT and ACT score are completely removed from the admissions equation. So even if the student decides to submit them, they're not included with their admissions evaluator. They don't factor in basically at all. And there are very few schools that do this. One of the currently evolving issues is the UC move from test optional to test blind. In the springtime, both Cal State and UC came out and said that they were going to be test optional for students for this application cycle and for UC moving into several more cycles pending some other decisions. There have been a few developments with that, one of them being that there was a lawsuit with the UC system that happened, and the result of that lawsuit was that colleges within the system could not use test scores at all. So they needed to move from test optional to test blind. As a response to that lawsuit, many of the campuses opted out already and said, okay, not a problem. We're just going to figure out a new system. We're not going to worry about this. There are a few campuses that are still waiting to hear the final decision from the courts about exactly what they can and cannot use. And their statement, we have been told, will be ready on the 29th. So in a few more weeks, we should know exactly where each of the schools in the UC system falls in terms of what we will see or not see as a part of the application evaluation and what your reader will and will not see as well. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because I know it is a little bit confusing. No? Okay, great. I hope not. Okay. So regarding testing updates, this is going to be a very personal decision for every single student. You need to explore what your options are depending on your college list. So again, the larger variety that you have on your list, the more options that you might have in regards to testing policies. There is another list that's linked here that is from Fair Test that you all are more than welcome to look at and check to see where the schools on your list currently fall. Recommendations are going to vary greatly by student and situation. If you have not tested yet, so you're a student who was not ready to test in the spring, did not have an opportunity to test in the spring, and still has not had an opportunity to test now in the fall, you don't need to stress about this. So colleges know and understand the challenges of this situation. I have heard that there will be potentially some testing options coming up into October and November. That does not mean that you have to do them. I definitely don't want to encourage students to risk their health and wellness and safety if they don't feel comfortable. I want to remind everyone that admissions is an additive process, so nothing that you submit is going to work against you. In terms of the overall evaluation of the student, anything that's added as a part of the application is considered a positive or neutral. So There's not one thing that is going to determine admission for a student. It won't be one test score or one grade or one AP test or one essay that's going to make or break the difference for students. It's either going to completely neutral out or it will be helpful for your admissions team depending on what their current policy is. If this is like a last ditch effort, like you've tested and you weren't super happy with your score, you want to improve, but you haven't prepped, you're not really sure what else to do, there are so many more important things to do right now to focus on in terms of your applications, your personal statement, your list. It is not something that we want students stressing about because there is so much flexibility within the current policy. There is a website to see where testing policies land. So if they are test blind or test optional, that is the website that's linked here that you guys will be able to use. And then depending on your individual situation in school, it will be up to you to decide if you want to submit your score or not. Those questions are really student specific by school. So if you are in that situation, feel free to make an appointment with us or reach out and maybe we can send you an email with some more detailed information about submitting test scores. But after that, we are going to move forward talking about application deadlines and some other fun things. So the total senior timeline. In general, like our previous slides, there are typically 3 types of groups of students within CUSD. There are 4-year bound students who are applying for colleges to go directly from high school. There are community college bound students, and then there are these alternative pathway students that are figuring out kind of exactly what they'd like to do. For our 4-year bound students, your application season typically runs from August until the end of November. That's your busy season. There are some January deadlines for out-of-state or private schools or schools with rolling admission, so they take applications pretty much all the way through the cycle. Our overall recommendation is that you start to finalize your applications around Thanksgiving break or before finals when possible. This allows extra time for you to have with your family. It also allows extra time for scholarship season, which is typically December, January, and February, to get your financial aid sorted out, to learn about different applications and different scholarships if you want to continue to apply for those as well. Admissions decisions typically roll out from mid-February, so around Valentine's Day, through mid-April or spring break. Almost always we will have a May 1st deposit date. Most 4-year institutions this past spring, there were some extensions because of COVID, and I think that in general, the swing will be back to May 1st as decision day for most colleges. That will be when you have to make a deposit saying, this is my decision and this is where I'm going. I will say for some of the more selective institutions, the wait list will not be finalized by May 1st. And so sometimes there are students that will double deposit depending on if they're admitted to a school and waitlisted at another that they're really interested in. For our community college bound students, you have Saddleback college counselors available now on your campus. If this is an option that you are considering, please make appointments with them and discuss your first year plan, your matriculation process, all of that with them. Counseling 100 and a Promise program is a program that essentially pays for students to be enrolled full-time at community college for their first 2 years. That program is still happening at all community colleges throughout California. I've heard that the Counseling 100 course is no longer going to be required to participate in that program, but we will know more about that very soon as they're going to be presenting at our college fair. Matriculation, or the process of transitioning from a high school to a community college student, typically begins in the November to December timeline. Counseling 100, if you're going to participate in that course, begins in January, running through May, so through your spring semester. Take advantage of your extra time. If you're not a student who has to make a decision about their major or who has to complete applications right now in the fall, you have a lot of time to look at different programs and community colleges. Saddleback is not the only option. IVC is not the only option just because they are close. Just like 4-year institutions, community colleges will all have different programs that they offer. So for example, there is a biotechnology program at Irvine Valley College that is not offered at Saddleback. And likewise, there is a nursing program at Saddleback that is not offered at Irvine Valley College. So depending on what your interests are, you definitely want to explore those very, very soon so that you can get into a course pathway that'll let you transfer in an appropriate amount of time and that you'll be taking classes that matter for transfer for you. For our alternative pathway students, explore all of the options. Any one of these could still apply to you at any point, or you could opt out at any point if you're still wondering. Most of our alternative pathway students explore trade fields, military options, and work as a primary from when they are exploring colleges and what that option would be for them. Historically, a lot of the trade programs were housed in separate vocational programs outside of any of our institutions. So in higher ed, like a community college or a four-year school, that's actually changed. So cosmetology, culinary arts, all of those programs typically are now housed within the community college system. So believe it or not, even if you kind of thought you might be on an alternative path, you might still be at a community college taking that program. And that's really for students' safety and to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of by some of those for-profit institutions that are not around anymore. Military options, I have some great links for all of those. And then job opportunities and career workshops. We have a lot of those into the spring, which is definitely more career focused. Utilize our resources and come to any of those events if you know that that's going to be something that you're going to be moving forward through after senior year. Come out of your senior year with a great resume, know how to interview for a job or for an internship that you want. And that's true for any of our other students who are interested in internships or job prospects. I see a couple of questions that B is answering, so great. Thank you, B. And we're moving right along. Okay, in terms of university applications, there are 4 main applications for students. One is the Coalition, which has a variety of schools and rolling admission dates. The second larger application is Common App, which has rolling admission and a variety of schools. And what I mean by rolling admission is that there will be multiple schools on the application with different deadlines. Once you start either the Coalition or Common App, you go through a process of adding the particular schools that you were interested in, and it will give you the individual deadlines for each campus. The UC application is open now for the UC system, and then it opens for submission on November 1st through the 30th. So you can open your application, start working on it, work on your personal insight questions, work on your activities section, and then it won't be ready to submit until November 1st. The Cal State application is closed now. It opens October 1st for freshman students. It actually is open now, but it's for transfers. So if you tried to get ahead and work on that application, I'm sure it looks very strange. It doesn't have a lot of things that are applicable to you as a freshman applicant. Do not try and start early for this one because it will reset on the 1st. After the 1st, it's actually open an extended period of time this year until December 4th. For submissions. Typically the UC and the Cal State app used to align their due dates, but Cal State's being a little bit kinder this year and they're giving you an extra week or so to get that done. For community college applications, there are rolling dates and deadlines per school. Typically applications are open as early as January for the following fall. So there still is some proactive planning that's involved regardless of if you're going the 4-year or the 2-year route. There are a lot of different names for the promise programs, grant, tuition waiver type plans at these community colleges. Typically, they are going to be under a promise program. They're also called Freshman Advantage at different institutions. Whatever institution you're interested in, just be aware of deadlines in early March or April. That's also when your financial aid deadlines will be, and we're going to quickly discuss that as well. You want to make sure that within your spring semester, you're proactively doing the things that you need to get that tuition waiver, to meet with a counselor, to plan your classes, because it is going to be very student focused and student centered. I see some questions about Coalition and Common App. Coalition and Common App are both open now. You can start anytime. They are a school by school basis, so you can start working on the application and then actually choose your schools later if you wanted to do that. And Morgan, I see, can you send in an application without the SAT and then send the score later? Yes, you can. You would send an official score report from SAT. So if you're taking a test or registered to take an exam, but you don't know what your score is and you'd like to wait till later to send it, you absolutely can send it later. It would just be an official score report from the start. If you've already submitted your application, there's no way to go in and re-edit it to add it later. Okay, community colleges and promise program information. Okay, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because there's so much more variety that I think we don't really give community college credit for. So AB 19 is the legislation that passed to establish that first full-time college students get a tuition waiver for their first 2 years at any community college. This is very different than before, where there were income requirements, there were different requirements for first-time and part-time students. So this is a more inclusive program than it used to be, and it is at every single community college in California. So the two that are closest to us are Irvine Valley College and also Saddleback. Orange Coast is up in Costa Mesa, which is a much larger campus actually than either one of these, and has a larger variety of programs to consider as well. So just some things to know. There is a website that I am going to pull up this link to show you all what Program Finder OC looks like. This is a new search tool that is inclusive to Orange County. So if you're looking in LA, it might be a little bit different, but Program Finder is one that will connect any Orange County high school with a community college. So if you're interested in any of these sectors, it's broken down by industry sector, you can search to see which community colleges in your area have these programs. So in terms of arts, media, and entertainment, if you click on this, it will tell you, let's look at commercial music. All of these colleges will have some type of commercial music program within Orange County. This is a resource that as counselors, we were so excited for because it makes connecting students with these programs so much easier, but this is absolutely a free public website that any student can use. If you know that community college might be in your future and you're not super sold on Saddleback, this is a great way to see what else is close and what might be comparable and still give you a tuition waiver too as well. Okay. Eligibility for the Promise program varies by campus. One of the essential things is that you have to complete financial aid and you have to be qualified as a California resident. So it is inclusive in that way. We're going to talk about the Dream Act and Fafsa very quickly, but essentially what you're going to do is also put whatever community college you're interested in, and this goes for four-year students as well. You're going to add your colleges of record, or what college do you want to receive this information and process it for you. It's important that you have your college of record correct on your FAFSA so that your fee waiver can be applied at the community college level. For four-year bound students, it's important that you can add up to 10 colleges on your FAFSA. You add as many as you'd like, and that whatever college you end up attending is also on there so that they can access your financial information and qualify you for scholarships, grants, work study, any of those great things that students really want. For the California Promise program, you also need to be enrolled in 12 units or more, which is considered full-time each semester. And typically your community colleges are going to ask that you include math or English in your first semester to make sure that you are on track to transfer. Does anybody have any questions about Promise program? Looking good. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I know we're covering a lot of information really quickly. Some helpful tips for our community college bound students. So the Saddleback counselors, like I said, are available in scheduling meetings with students now. Please take advantage of their knowledge and guidance. Our team is really wonderful in terms of college counseling, but if you're going to be transitioning to Saddleback or to the community college later, it's such a great starting point to set an appointment, hold yourself accountable, and walk through what that process will look like with the professionals that are actually going to be helping you in the future. It requires the same energy and research as any other student applying to college because you want to make sure that you're making the best decision for you. Again, I'm going to discuss Ferpa Laws. So that just means that it applies at all college levels. So student information is not shared with parents at the community college level either. So students have to begin learning autonomy, be able to navigate this process as much as possible check and respond to emails appropriately. As a part-time adjunct, I am at Long Beach City College, and I will tell you that emails are one of the most painful points for students. I get emails from my students all the time that don't include their ID number or their last name, or their emails don't match anything that I have. And so it's really, really difficult to help them or connect them with resources because I have to then ask for that additional information. Sometimes what would have been a really quick answer can take up to a week because I'm asking for additional information. They're waiting a few days to respond. You really don't want to get into the habit of that, regardless of what your post-secondary plans are. But parents, just be aware that if you're calling or emailing to inquire on behalf of your student, your calls and emails probably will not be answered. Okay, now we are into alternative pathways, military information, and certificates. So apprenticeship and trade program deadlines are a little bit different than higher education in terms of four-year and community college, and that they typically revolve around a student's 18th birthday or on a quarterly enrollment basis. There are plenty of trade and certificate programs where you do not have to be 18. You have to qualify by being 18 within the fiscal year, essentially of when you're going to start, or on a quarterly basis. So they'll take enrollments after you're 18 within the next 3 months. There are such a large variety of high wage industries where students can begin working as a part of a trade or an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is on-the-job training that is a set schedule and set standard to earn essentially a certificate. Examples of those are machinist, HVAC, ironwork, masonry, culinary arts, welding, electrical work. All of these are very high wage industries and very in high demand. Some of the local community colleges, like I said before, will incorporate these programs on their campus. You definitely can use the promised tuition waiver to participate in most of these programs if that's of interest to you. The one exception I know becomes difficult for students is cosmetology, because there is a fee involved with purchasing your kit and the clothing that you need to have. Your tuition waiver will not cover that, but it will cover the cost of your courses. There is a really helpful resource guide here, and then a lot of information about apprenticeships and how long they are, when they enroll, what the local unions look like at Cal Apprenticeships, which is a really helpful, great, comprehensive website if you've never considered this before or you're thinking about it now for the first time. Okay, we are almost to Q&A. You guys are doing so great with your questions. Thank you, B, again, for helping me manage these as they come in. In terms of financial aid, I am going to just briefly cover what FAFSA and Dream Act are and what they look like. We are going to have multiple presentations covering the actual application itself once it opens, and I will mention those dates again here in the next few slides. So one misconception about financial aid is that it is a multi-step process. I think a lot of parents and students think, well, I fill out my FAFSA and so I'm done. Like, if I did that, then I'm good. We're so happy that you did that. That is a lot of work in and of itself. Do not get me wrong, but it is definitely multi-step. FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It is the only application that goes to every single college in the United States and even beyond. The Dream Act is specific for California for some of our undocumented students, but it qualifies the same way. It's only inclusive to California though. Completing your financial aid documents is one of the more parent-inclusive tasks that students have. You need some tax information. You have to talk about which parent you live with, who you live with the majority of the time, if you have a family that has multiple homes or multiple living situations. But it is so beneficial for all students to complete. One of the most common things that I hear from parents and students is, well, we make too much money, we're not going to qualify for this, and so I don't want to fill it out. And really, you're just doing a disservice to your students. You're not going to qualify for a promise that way. You're not going to qualify for scholarships, loans, work study, and not have a variety of options to choose from. Anything that you qualify for, you always have the option to use or not to use. So it is not a binding document in any way. The FAFSA opens on October 1st each year. So very similar to your application timelines for lots of colleges. And it closes on March 2nd. Our first presentation, where we're going to be talking about exactly what that process looks like in terms of steps, is going to be October 15th during our CUSD Virtual College Fair Host Week. And then there will be additional workshops available in December where we'll be walking through the application page by page and actually have breakout rooms with our friends at Cash for College, which is the California Student Aid Commission. They are experts at this form, experts in their field, and they're going to be able to help you answer specific questions if you have a very intense financial situation or you're not sure how to answer something. Please take advantage of those. The earlier that you file, the better. You don't qualify for more money if you file very early, but you definitely have more information to work with as you talk with your student about what their financial aid package could look like or what is affordable for your family in terms of college. Overall, the application should take 30 minutes or less. You can file online, or there's a new mobile app that students used last year that was so great. The one exception for male students is they're still going to have to register for selective service after the fact. This actually used to be included as a part of FAFSA and now is not. It's a completely separate piece, but because they're turning 18, they do have to register and submit that information for their FAFSA to go through. Okay, student specifics. We are gaining steam and getting closer to more Q&A, you guys. These are going to be more specific for students depending on their pathway, but we're going to talk about letters of recommendation and then college essay and writing prompts as well. So college application essays and prompts. Most students who are applying to a four-year will have some type of writing prompt that they need to submit as a part of their application process. According to the National Association of College Admissions Counselors, they can account for about 20% of your candidate review. That's what our colleges are reporting in their last survey. So they definitely are an important piece of your application. For Common App, you have 7 prompt options. You choose one to write about, which is 650 words or less. And then there are various supplemental essays by school. More selective institutions, when we were talking about FIT before, will have more specific questions for students to answer. For example, Stanford on their Common App has 11 supplemental questions or writing pieces that they want students to answer. And that's intentional. They don't want to make it easy for you. They want to get to know you. The Common App will also have an optional COVID question, which is a little bit different for this year. If you are unsure if you should answer that, there is a great blog post that we posted on our social media this week. It's also in our COVID newsletter that went out, but I can always link that to this application or to this slide as well for you guys to read. It's from our friends at Tulane University in New Orleans, and it kind of goes through a step-by-step evaluation process of what you should include, should you write it, and what's important for your admissions officer to know. For the UC application, there are 8 personal insight questions, or we call them PIQs. Students choose 4 prompts to answer. They are 350 words each, so they're much, much shorter. They are concise, to the point answers. And then there is an optional or additional information space on the application. This would be the appropriate space to talk about COVID or testing information if you are deciding not to submit test scores, or if you want your admissions officer to know more about your process. If you were registered and all of your tests were canceled, if you had a major family life impact or change because of the pandemic, those are things that you can add in this section, but they wouldn't necessarily be 100% appropriate for a PIQ, depending on the prompt that you're answering. For the Cal States, so San Diego State, Cal Poly, no writing supplement. It is the most data-based application that there is. And so if there are any things or any schools that you're applying to that are a Cal State, you don't have to worry about any writing supplements for them. Letters of recommendation. So each high school has a slight variation in their deadlines or process. For most CUSD high schools now, we use a Google form to request information from students. The information that you include here is important. Most important is the deadlines. So are you applying early to any institution? Do you need a letter very soon for a scholarship? The variety of schools or institutions that you're applying to that your letter needs to be sent to. It's very important that you include as up-to-date information as you can on this form or whatever you give to your academic advisors. Some high schools will also use a parent submission form where you can talk about your student and a teacher form separate sometimes as well, where they can talk about your performance as a student in their classroom, or academically kind of how they would evaluate you. Most professionals or most academic advisors need at least 2 weeks to create a well-drafted letter for you. On Common App or on Coalition, there will be a button for you to waive your FERPA rights. That means that the process is more direct and you're basically acknowledging that you will not be able to read the letter that they submit on your behalf. I know most advisors or most professionals will not submit a letter unless you agree to this, because it makes the process more honest, more direct, and more open. Obviously, there is an understanding that whoever you're asking for a letter of recommendation is going to write something super wonderful and amazing about you. And so it shouldn't worry you to have to click this button or do this. It actually just makes the process a lot faster and more direct for the colleges as well. Okay, we are at the very end. We are right almost at 7 o'clock. I'm so happy that we got through that quickly. I want to talk a little bit about the additional senior supports that we have moving forward throughout the rest of the semester. We have a monthly newsletter, like I said, where we highlight basically everything that's happening in terms of deadlines, events, anything for the month. Those are pushed out a little bit differently than they were last year because we moved to Canvas. But they're typically on your guidance website. They're always linked on our social media. So if you don't follow us, please do. I will not follow you back, students. I don't need to follow you. I just need you to follow me. We post a lot of deadlines and a lot of upcoming events and things like that, but our newsletters are always linked. We have a few different mini events or mini sessions that happen on top of our regular appointments. One is the college list check-in. Those are happening now. A check-in is a 15-minute quick session with a counselor. You pre-submit your list of colleges that you're thinking about, and they'll categorize them for you into reach, target, and safety. This is great for students who have already done some pre-work, who really want a second opinion or another set of eyes on their college list, and just want to make sure that they're on the right track and they're doing the right thing. College app sessions and essay sessions start in October. Those are already up for booking if you guys think that that's something that will be helpful for you along your process. Those are between 15 and 30 minutes. App sessions are always on Tuesdays. Essay sessions are always on Thursdays. And those are, again, one-on-one with a futurology counselor, where you can pull up your application that you're working on and ask questions about where things should be, how should you answer this, and things of that nature. For essay sessions, you actually pre-submit your essays ahead of time so that we have time to read, review, make edits and suggestions for you, and then we discuss together what those edits or suggestions might be. Because those are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we always have one-on-one appointments for more extended conversations about any of the topics that we discussed tonight. Those are available 5 days a week, all different times and sessions with our counselors. We have a lot of cool events coming up for seniors. One is going to be our UC Activities and Awards webinar that is happening coming up on the 30th with B, who's here running the chat with me. I'll be back on the 7th to go through the Cal State app with you guys with our friends from Fullerton. Those are going to be happening live in a format very similar to this. If you're working on the UC or Common App right now, we actually have those recordings and webinars on our website. So you can go, they're on YouTube, you can pause and fast forward through the presentation to whatever page you are working on to know kind of exactly what to expect. We also have in our resource library a set of handouts, admission statistics, all kinds of things that students can use to begin building their list, like we're linking previous slides, to understand more about the process or more resources that we have. I'll actually pull that up for everyone to take a look at, just so you guys understand what I mean when I say folder 5 and 6. So on our website, the resource library is where any handout or document pretty much lives. For seniors, folders 5 and 6 are going to be where most information that you need lives. In folder 5, if you're just starting your college list process or just starting to look at that, there is a lot of information in here about building a college list. There's information about recruiting, the transfer process, and then most importantly, there's a lot of admissions data in here. So if you want to know how many students are getting into the UCs, here's a nice little data set for you. In folder 6, there is more information about the actual application process itself. So the pay folder has more financial aid information. Decide has definitely more information about once you're through the application process, how do you choose the school that's going to be the best for you. But within applications, there'll be subfolders about the Cal State, Common App, UC, and then essay resources separately. There's a lot of great stuff in here if you've never ever looked at it, and typically things that will be either linked here or referenced in an appointment if you've had one with us. Those are the majority of resources that I have for you. I know we're rounding out right about at 7 o'clock. I'm gonna open this up for more Q&A. I also have a post survey if you guys feel so inclined to complete. It just helps us know what information was helpful or not helpful. You can open with your camera and scan to do it. It will also be in your post email that you'll get after we are through tonight. So let me go and start looking at some of the Q&A to see what questions we have and what I can clarify. So we have some questions saying, what are your thoughts about requesting letters from sophomore year or earlier, especially because of social distancing and limiting personal connection from last year? What my recommendation is that students try to cultivate relationships with their teachers at all ages. Your admissions officer is not going to care necessarily what year the student had a particular teacher, but what type of relationship that they built with them. I've had students tell me all kinds of things that they've heard about. It has to be a STEM teacher. It has to be a math teacher. It has to be this particular type of teacher. And from my experience, I don't believe any of that to be true. I believe that whatever instructor, coach, person in your child's life who has been able to track their educational progress is the best person to speak about them. Typically, it will be a teacher that they've had more recently as they apply to college, but it could also be a teacher at another point in their educational journey as well. We have some questions about getting college credit for the AP exams that you've taken throughout high school. There are two options to do that most effectively. One option is to include your AP scores with your application so that they're evaluated or that they're flagged that you have them. The final option will be once you find out where your admissions decisions actually are, so where you've been accepted, you will send an AP exam score report to the admissions and records office at your school, and they'll evaluate you for credit typically over the summer before you start your freshman year, especially if you have some prerequisite classes in there like English or math that you don't need to take as a part of your first freshman year pathway. They do try to get those updated as quickly as possible to make sure that you guys earn credit for either AP or IB exams, depending on the institution. On the College Board website, under the AP tab, there will be a search feature where you can see exactly what schools accept which particular score for any AP exam that they have. And so you can kind of get a head start of understanding what schools will accept 3s, 4s, or 5s in terms of your pathway. Let's see. B, thank you so much for answering all these questions. Yes, all of these slides will be linked on the website and available. I know that I was not able to go into every single link, and I know that they are very link heavy. That was on purpose just to try and make sure that I got as much information to you all as possible. I do have some more questions in here. So B, thank you for answering these questions about if not sending test scores is a red alert. It is not a red alert at all. You guys are in a very similar position all over the country in terms of what COVID has done to your options and what you've been able to do or not do in terms of testing. So you guys are definitely not alone in that, and colleges understand that and have definitely pivoted a lot of their outreach and messaging to reflect that, I hope. Lots of questions about Counseling 100. Awesome. Thank you, B. You were so on top of this. All right, we are right at 7, which is what I hoped we would be. If there's anyone who wants to stay back, I'll stay back for another 5 to 10 minutes to answer some more questions in the Q&A, but otherwise, I promise we will have this presentation uploaded very soon, and all of the slides will be uploaded and linked as well. If there was a particular subject or topic that we did not cover tonight that you are really interested in knowing from your student, you are more than welcome to email us at CUSD-Futureology@capousd.org. That's on the website as well. But it's been so great to talk with you seniors, to know kind of what's on your mind and what's going on. Anna, I will actually send you that sheet privately. If you send me your email on the Q&A, I will send it to you directly. She is asking about colleges that consider IB exams for credit. That's actually not on the IB website, so I have to get it from your IB coordinator. They will have it as well, but I can send you that directly to your email if you'd like. And if not, then I will end our presentation now. And thank you guys so much again for coming to spend your Thursday evening with Bea and myself. We'll be back soon, again, with multiple presentations for UC, for Cal State, and for other things kind of throughout the fall. So please join us. I hope that this was informative, enjoyable, and we're done by 7. Thank you so much for coming. Bea, do we have any other questions that I can see? Okay, yes, we have one more about military options. Yes, for military options and for ROTC, that is such a specific, cool option for students. If you're interested in ROTC specifically and not just military options, I would highly, highly recommend that you make an appointment with one of our counselors, because it's going to vary quite a bit based on what your intended major might be and what location you'd like to be in. So there's no cookie cutter answer for that one, but we definitely have a lot of resources to guide you all in the right direction for those type of programs. If ROTC is also something you're considering, we have a recorded webinar from last spring, actually, that covers all of the information about military academies as well. That's a great duo to watch together. There are obviously different programs in Military Academy and ROTC, but the application process will be quite similar actually in the physical requirements and the options at different institutions. So that's a very lengthy answer, but please make an appointment. We'd love to chat with you about that. It's definitely a great option for students who want the best of both. Oh, thank you, Bea. Awesome. All right. A couple more open questions. Perfect, Anna. I see your email. I will get that sent over to you probably tomorrow morning. Awesome. I think that is it. Thank you all so much. Again, if you have time to scan and do our post survey, we would so appreciate it. And we will be back really soon with some more information for you as you guys navigate senior year. You're off to a great start. This presentation was so packed with information and you all hung with me. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful weekend.